We owe this episode to our Slavic listeners, and there are a lot of you, enough that we couldn't ignore it any longer. So tonight, we're exploring the cryptids that shape your folklore, the spirits that guard your rivers, and the monsters that roam your mountains. We're exploring those enigmatic beings that your ancestors feared, respected, and sometimes worshipped. Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks.
I'm Steve, and I've not seen a conspiracy that I don't like.
I'm Jerry, the analytical skeptic of the group that says, show me the proof.
I'm Brett. I'm the mediator between the two elders and usually cast the deciding vote.
Hello, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Tax season is upon us. Did you know that 47% of Americans are planning to use their tax refunds for everyday expenses, home improvements, and vacations? What if you used your tax refund for a new home instead? Again, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Your tax refund can be used towards down payment, closing costs, or paying down existing debt to help get approved. So before you spend that tax refund, let's get together and see how to best utilize those funds to invest in your future and your new home. Call or text me at 502-680-0953. Again, that's 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 4489808, Das Acquisitions LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
Before we get into tonight's stories, I want to take a moment and speak directly to a group of listeners who've been with us almost since the very beginning. A group that shows up every week, no matter what corner of the world we wander into. A group that has supported this show with a kind of loyalty that honestly humbles me. Slovakia, this episode is all for you. You've been tuning in for nearly 5 years now, long before we ever realized our little show would reach across oceans and mountain ranges. Every time I see your country pop into our listener map, it reminds me that stories don't belong to borders. They belong to people, to curiosity, to that spark inside of us that wants to understand the strange and the beautiful throughout the entirety of the world. Your folklore, your mysteries, your legends, they're incredible. They're deep, they're old, they're powerful. They carry the weight of the Carpathians and the whisper of the forest that have been watching humanity for longer than history can even measure. The fact that you've welcomed us into those stories, that you allow us to explore them with you, it means more than I can ever say. So tonight, we're shining the spotlight right back on you, on your rivers and on your mountains, on your spirits and your ghost, on your castles that breathe and your creatures that linger in the dark. This is our way of saying thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. And thank you for letting us be a part of your world. Slovakia, we see you every single week. We appreciate you, and we are honored tonight to tell your stories. Jerry, let's get started.
Absolutely. Yeah, it still absolutely blows me away when I see the number of listeners from Slovakia and other countries as well. But Slovakia, for a long period, for years, has been our #2 country behind all of the United States. And we are still mystified. We're still humbled and blown away that's
almost always at. I don't think it's fault. There was a 1 month period maybe that it fell out of the top 5.
Yep.
Unbelievable. And when we first started this, I believe, and I could be wrong, I'm old, so please don't hold it against me, but I believe Germany was the first country outside of the United States that downloaded an episode, and Slovakia was number 2. That's how long they've been with us. Somebody over there in Slovakia, and the numbers keep growing. So for all of you in Slovakia that are telling your friends and family about us and tuning in, tell them thank you. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
I don't even know. I think Russian is the primary dialect. I don't know that to be fact. I know that the Slovaks have inhabited that land for over 1,500 years.
A long time.
But I hope they must speak some sort of English, or it gets translated or something. But I just freaking love it, and I appreciate it.
I don't know about that country, but in many countries around the world now, English is the de facto number 2 language, mainly because of its use in business and all that throughout the world. So there's a ton of countries in the world that teach English even to
As a second language.
as a second language to even young, often elementary school students.
Yeah, that's what all countries should do. To be honest, we talk all the time about how terrible our system is here in America for not forcing that second language, for not
Yes.
making
saying-
us being able to speak out 2 or 3 languages.
You weren't saying everyone should convert to English.
No,
You were
no, no.
saying
I'm
more
saying
countries need to
diversify their
teach
speech.
second. Absolutely.
I mean, even if it, and this isn't a matter of pride thing. This is a financial thing. A lot of business is handled in English, be it through England, Britain, the European nations, or the United States. So maybe English should be a second language, but in America or in English-speaking countries, we should also be forced to learn a second language. I would love to speak a second language. I can barely speak English, but there we go.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
Man, we got some really cool stuff tonight that we're going to cover. And each of us, so the way we broke this down tonight for Slovakia, and we're going to do this to all the countries that support us the way Slovakia has. We've done one a couple of months ago for Vietnam.
We did.
And I love it. I don't know about you, Jerry, but the learning and the thought and digging into these country or area specific things about if you listen to the show tonight, you're going to hear things you've never heard before. That's a guarantee. Yep. And that's what I like about it.
The other thing that has absolutely blown me away is the opposite. How much similarities there are between the stories. Again, if you're talking about Slovakia or Russian or United States and Mexico, we're neighbors. So it would make sense of why those stories would pass from group to group. But when you're talking about countries around the world and yet you continue to hear stories that are extremely similar. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, we've talked about that. But we're going to find out tonight it's not just the big hairy guy. It's many of the other cryptids that you find the immense, eerily similarities between these stories of countries that are vastly far apart.
And maybe, if we're lucky and time permits, even what isn't terrestrial are very similar, which those are the ones that are really scary too, because and I'll preface that by saying if an alien, and I'm using air quotes, is over the United States and it doesn't get shot down, then it's a possibility it's one of ours, right?
Sure.
If that same exact alien is over a foreign country and doesn't get shot down, that's a little different story. In just my opinion. And we'll get to that hopefully a little later.
You kind of lost me a little bit there.
Basically,
When you
if
say ours, you're referring to American, U.S.?
if it's your country, your government is, a good example is the F-117. When they were test flying, or the B-2 bomber, which are both known aircraft now. But when they were testing those, they would test them over the United States. They didn't send them over a hostile country and test them, because if they got caught, they're just going to shoot it down, whatever it is, and ask questions later. We know that if it's ours, we're not going to shoot it down, right?
Right.
if we send that same tech over a different country and they don't know who it belongs to, they're going to shoot it down, and they should. They're protecting their airspace.
Come to
Exactly. That's what I'm
what we
saying.
did with the Chinese balloon.
Exactly.
A couple of years ago, that started up in Canada and came down. And where did we shoot it, off the coast of South Carolina?
South Carolina.
We
We
did
let
it
it.
through a
We
large
did
part
let
of
it.
the
We,
US.
we did let it see everything it wanted to see before we shot it down. What an idiot! What a dumb thing that was. Anywho, let's stop talking about geopolitics, and let's talk about something, Jerry. This is going to. I actually had a hard time saying it at first, but the more I said it to practice it, the more I like how it feels coming out of my mouth.
Nice.
It's kind of like that NBA player, Manute Bol. If you say his name enough, it actually starts rolling out of your mouth and it makes your mouth feel good. You know what I'm talking about? The eight.
Bowl is not one that I look at and think, I could never pronounce that. Your cryptid, on the other hand, I saw it and I was like, yep, I can't do that one. Could never
Well,
pronounce it.
the first half of it's kind of silent. It's basically just called Grolica. Grolica.
Nice.
Yeah. So Grolica is a rare and unsettling figure from Slavic folklore. Described as a female forest demon. I'm pretty sure I've dated her at some point.
I think you're right. I saw a couple.
I'm pretty sure I dated Grolica at some point. She has both. Let's let that thing go. My gosh.
Train
Our
allowed.
studio is right beside some train tracks, and 90% of the time you never hear them.
Especially late in the evening. Yeah.
But
We
sometimes those engineers, they come through and they just have to lay on the horn. And you know what I've learned?
What's that?
When they do that, there's a McDonald's about 2 miles down the tracks. When they hit that horn like that, most of the time they stop at that McDonald's. Which is really bad for the people who need to cross the tracks by our studio because the train's usually still halfway across the
That
tracks.
can't be legal. I'm sure they make up some emergency.
Oh,
or
yeah.
something to give it a halfway valid. But yeah, you can't just stop and block miles of roads because you want to go over here to McDonald's for dinner. Anyway, we're getting so off track.
So, Grolica is a rare and unsettling figure from Slavic folklore, described as a female forest demon with both traits of natural spirit and monstrous being. Her legend survives only in scattered regional tales now, mostly around the areas of, man, this is where I have trouble, Voslin and Bistikra. I know I butchered those. You can leave comments down below, please. And she's considered one of the most obscure Slovakian cryptids. Now, according to folklore and all of the sources that I could find, Grolica is depicted as a gigantic woman, black as coal, feet like shovels and hands like spades. Her waist is thick as a barrel, shoulders as wide as a bed, and her eyes are as large as pie plates. I don't know about you, Jerry, but I wouldn't want to meet her in a dark alley.
Absolutely.
She has a wild, tangled hair that reaches her waist, breast like jugs, which she throws over her shoulders.
So it's not all bad.
I knew I was coming with you. I knew it. When she catches a person, she forces. You're going to love this part.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
When she catches a person, Jerry, she forces her breast into their mouth until they suffocate.
So now we know we're motorboating originally.
It is a grotesque inversion of maternal imagery. So this entire folklore was designed to corrupt you.
Apparently.
Her presence is signaled by a long, mournful hooting sound, similar to an owl's call. In some regions, particularly near Bariska, she was said to have no visible form, existing only as a haunting voice echoing through the mountains. Folklorists, however, trace Gralika's roots to old Slovak nature worship, where she embodied raw, untamed forces of the wilderness. She often is compared to Runa, a forest goddess or demoness, depending on how you look, and to Banak, a woodland deity. I am butchering these names. Please don't hate us.
Far better job with them than I would have.
Her maternal yet deadly behavior may symbolize the duality of nature, nurturing yet destructive. Some scholars link her to the Mauma, that's a fun word, a Slavic forest hag who steals and swaps human children. I don't want to be compared to Mauma, a forest hag.
Totally agree.
By the late 19th century, most of the tales of Gralika had nearly vanished from Slavic oral tradition. Folklorists such as Tatiana Sibolva notes that her myth was already sporadic and rare in folk storytelling. Modern Slovak folklore enthusiasts and cryptid researchers classify her as a forgotten demon, distinct from her more common entities like the vodnik or the sirt. That is Gralika in all of her wonderful wonder.
You're right. Once you say that a time or two, it does begin to almost roll off the tongue. Gralika.
Gralika.
Yeah. I like it. Interesting.
Very interesting, and I'm glad that we could bring something up that most Slavic people may have forgotten about. That makes me even happier.
And I mentioned about how similar some stories were right after you just said that we're going to be talking about things that a lot of people have never heard of. And you're right. I had never and would never, I'm sure, in my life have heard of this had we not decided to do this episode.
Absolutely.
Vodnik that I'm going to be covering is kind of the opposite. It's very similar. I'd never heard of it. So again, that part is absolutely the same. We talked about how amazing it is when you're talking about cryptids. In many cases, you hear these stories that are just so similar to ones that we've already heard. And also, in many cases, these stories have been told for hundreds of years, if not longer. It's certainly true, as I mentioned, with Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch, whatever, it goes by many names. But these are countries around the entire world that have got very similar stories. Well, the same is also true with the Slovakian cryptid that I'm talking about tonight, Vodnik, the drowned man of the Carpathian waters, the green-skinned trickster who lives beneath the surfaces of rivers and mill ponds.
Let me just stop you real quick, because you always do the ones where they just under the surface of the water.
Remember, right?
And it's creepy to me.
That's what I was going to talk about, was how similar this one is to, do you remember his name?
No.
Mada.
Mada.
Ago when we were doing
Yes, Vietnam. It just creeps me out. And I don't know, have you seen Game of Thrones?
Sure, all of it.
The scene where they're in the lake of the damned, I think is what it's called, and the people are just under the surface. There is nothing creepier to me than things under the water.
And especially, can you imagine if you looked and saw something moving and you focused and you realized it's got a human shape?
Yeah.
And you begin to look and it's more and more human as you look at it?
Yeah,
I can't begin to imagine.
As someone who learned the hard way to every time they go in the ocean to wear shoes, like swim shoes, because I've had urchins in the bottom of my feet and rub my toes raw on coral and all the things.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. And that's in clear water. That's in water you can see all the way to the bottom for 30 feet. I can't imagine being in this murky, milky water and seeing something just under the surface looking back at me.
Vodnik and Mada. Mada for those.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but gosh, you always do things that give me the creeps.
Well, this one's kind of similar.
Ugh.
Manda, for those that didn't hear the Vietnamese episode, which I really enjoy and highly recommend that you listen to if you haven't already. But Manda was the restless spirit of someone who had drowned, often suddenly, tragically, or maybe even unjustly. And it was believed that they were trapped in those waters until they could lure someone else into the water and drown them. That was their only way of escaping, was to lure another victim in. In case you're wondering if those stories happen to be shared by people that live next door, Slovakia and Vietnam are over 5,400 miles apart. Not exactly next door neighbors, yet extremely similar stories. Now, Vodnik is one of the oldest and most persistent figures in Slavic and broader Slavic mythology. And he's a perfect example of how folklore often will blend fear, caution, humor, and even supernatural into one unforgettable character. If you're wondering how old some of these stories are, stories of the green-coated, pipe-smoking water goblin who traps human souls in porcelain jars, they've been passed down for over 1,000 years in Slovak and Czech villages. Yeah, you kind of raise your eyes at the jars, right? That's what he does. One soul per jar. He has these jars, according to the legend, and each person that gets trapped gets put into their own jar. Yeah, well, Vodnik isn't a ghost. He isn't exactly a demon. He's a water spirit. He's usually male, usually pale or greenish in color. He has long wet hair, a scraggly beard, and clothes that look like they've been soaked for a century, which, how surprising is that when you live in the water? In some stories, he's frog-like. In others, he looks almost human. At least that is until you see his eyes. He's not a mindless monster. He's very clever. He's often mischievous. And he has a hobby that makes him one of the most unsettling figures in European folklore. His hobby is collecting souls. Not metamorphically, literally. They are said to store them in ceramic pots or jars at the bottom of their ponds. Each pot contains the soul of someone who drowned in their water. And the more pots he has, the more powerful he becomes. Obviously, that makes him even more apt, more keen to trap more people.
Man, stay out of the water. Stay out of the water. And if you do get in the water, get out of the water and take a shower. Oh.
If you do get out of the water, what? Take a shower.
Yeah, get that off of you, because there's some funk on you if you get in that water. I'm just saying.
Yeah. This is one of the things that separates him from most other water spirits. This guy's not just dangerous. He's a collector. Now, they're often tied to specific landscapes, slow-moving rivers, mill ponds, marshes, deep forest lakes, old water mills. Anywhere that the water is dark, still, and often unpredictable. People believe that a vodnik was possibly lurking. In Slovakia, mill ponds are especially associated with it. These ponds were essential for grinding grain, but they're also very dangerous, deep, cold, full of hidden currents. People would often drown there. It wasn't unusual for that to happen. And obviously, folklore began to step in, possibly helping to explain why. The vodnik became the personification of accidental drowning. If someone vanished into the water, it wasn't just a tragedy. It was probably vodnik adding another soul to his collection. His personality will often change depending upon the region and the storyteller. In some areas, you have the dangerous vodnik. He's malicious. He lures people to the water with splashing sounds. He will sometimes break bridges. He weakens riverbanks and causes cave-ins. He will drag swimmers under, all just to steal souls to fill his pots. Now, this version is taken to be a warning. Respect the water, or it may take you. Then there's the mischievous vodnik. In these stories, he's more of a prankster. He tangles fishing lines. He ruins laundry that's left near the river. He will scare horses, splashing travelers. Yeah, big difference from the first one, right? He's annoying, not deadly, unless you disrespect him. Then there's the neutral vodnik. Some villagers, their stories, saw him as a guardian spirit of the water. They thought he was there to protect fish. He was helping to maintain the pond. He punishes polluters. And he helps keeps balance in the ecosystem. And that version is closer to a nature spirit than a monster, obviously. These variations make Vodnik one of the most flexible cryptids in Slavic history, in Slavic folklore, and actually probably anything that I'd ever heard. I don't think I've ever heard of a cryptid that was this varied, from neutral to a prankster to absolutely deadly. Let's talk about the pots. He keeps ceramic jars or pots underwater, each one containing a soul. When he captures someone, he removes their soul and steals it inside the pot. The pot often rattles or hums when the soul is restless. If a pot breaks, the soul is free. If he drops it, the soul escapes. If someone steals a pot, they can bargain for the soul's release. This detail is so specific and so strange that folklorists believe it may have roots in pre-Christian burial procedures, where pots were used to store ashes or symbolic spirits. It's also one of the reasons that Vodnik stories feel so eerie. They combine the physical world, the pots, the ponds, the meals, with the supernatural in a way that feels almost plausible. Even today, people in rural Slovakia report strange experiences near river and ponds often. Some of the things they report: shadowy figures standing near the water at dusk, sudden bubbling in ponds that are otherwise still, no movement, laughter or splashing with no visible source, greenish shapes just beneath the surface, cold spots or sudden chills near riverbanks. Now, most of these can be explained logically. Fish, methane pockets, birds, echoes, temperature shifts, some of it probably even optical illusions. But folklore is kind of like Steve. It doesn't care about boring things like facts or logic. It cares about gut feelings. You like that, huh?
Well, yeah, considering what I'm about to end Vodnik.
Okay. What's it
Ooh,
for?
what about that?
Slovakians are going to be happy. But yeah, what folklore and Steve cares about is gut feelings and the stories that keep children awake at night.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that this year in particular, many of my conspiracies have become conspirafacts. I just want you to know.
Give me a couple.
I will. In the next episode,
Okay.
we're not going to take away from Slavic tonight, but I'm telling you, it's coming,
Those
baby.
people that don't know Steve, that means he doesn't know of a single one, but he's going to try to figure out something that he can say, well, this is what it really means. That's what that means.
Jerry's so wrong. I'm going to send Grolic after you, man.
Back to Vodnik. Many historians believe that legends like Vodnik survive not simply because they're eerie tales, but because they perform an important cultural function. They help communities interpret the risks and mysteries of their environment and help to deal with it. It's often a warning to children: don't play near the water alone. Vodnik might get you. It's a way to explain tragedy. Before modern rescue techniques, drowning was unfortunately quite common. Vodnik gave families a narrative, a reason, even when the real cause was unknown. It's also a symbol of nature's power. Water is life, but it's also danger. And Vodnik embodies that duality. It's also a cultural icon. He appears in Slavic literature, Czech opera, folk art, modern cartoons, even local festivals today. He's one of the few cryptids who made the jump from fear to folklore celebrity. Vodnik is one of the most fascinating figures that you'll find in Slavic mythology. Partially, I think, because he's not just a monster, he's a metaphor. He represents the unpredictability of water, the fragility of life, and the way that communities create stories that help to make sense of danger. He can be funny, frightening, tragic, and symbolic all at once. And whether you see him as a soul-stealing demon or a mischievous river spirit, One thing is certain. In Slovakia, when you walk past a quiet pond at dusk, you don't walk too close to the edge because the water remembers and Vodnik might be listening.
Man, I don't like Vodnik.
Armada.
Armada. Things under the water I can't see in dark, murky, gross water makes me a little nervous. However, what's the chances, do you believe, that this was used because, and I'll explain why I'm asking this in just a second, that this wasn't a way for early parents to keep, because everybody knows kids are attracted to water. From the time they go walk, they want to get close to the water.
We know. That was absolutely one of the reasons.
And here's the reason I say it. Because a small toddler can become fish food very rapidly, especially when you have catfish in your rivers and lakes like this. One of the world record giant catfish caught in 2013 of July were two local fishermen in Slovakia reeled in a catfish weighing 220 pounds and measured 8 feet long. The fish was so large it took nearly an hour to get it to shore. As experts estimated that it had been in the water unimpeded for at least 40 years, making it one of the largest catfish ever recorded in the country. And guess what they did?
What?
Released it.
I'll be darned. Did you ever watch the show River Monsters?
Exactly.
This is something you would have saw on there.
The reason I say that, and the reason I wanted to bring it up, because A, that's freaking phenomenal. But that you become fish food all the way up until you're like 12 with a 220-pound catfish. I'm 260. It's taller than me and almost as big as me. It's bigger than you, probably.
Considerably taller than us. I mean,
Yeah.
we're close to 6 feet. It's 2 foot longer than that.
Right. Now, that is a record catching, but as an example, the Va River and its tributaries are famous for houchin fishing, which these are also massive fish that can use toddlers as food. Yeah. They often grow over 100 centimeters in length and weigh over 50 kilograms. Impressive, right?
Yeah, very.
So I'm just saying that Vodnik, although scary and gives me the willies, I think has an explanation, a real explanation, in order to keep the kids away from the water.
I certainly was.
I just can't imagine hooking it. I love to fish. The biggest fish I've ever caught was a carp in Indiana. It weighed 34 pounds.
That's a big fish.
Yeah. And it was just at the time, it was just a hair under the state record, which was really cool. I caught it in a private lake. It was just a grass carp. Caught it on a piece of corn. It just so happened there was a state resource officer there and doing a check. And he saw, and when we got it in, he weighed it. He said, "Man, you're just under a record." That was years ago, though. Biggest fish I ever caught. I held it all the way up, and it was curled. Its tail was... That wasn't anywhere near 220 pounds. That's insane.
It is.
Insane. So let's take a break. Let's listen to some commercials because they pay our bills. And then I want to talk about some other things of mysterious fortunes that happened in Slovakia.
Before you do that,
Sure.
First, we've gotten away from this a little bit. We need to make sure we do it every week. Does Slovakian cryptids deserve more or less news coverage?
So for Grolica, which we are bringing Grolica back from the proverbial dead because she's already as a extinct demon, I think that yes, just because we don't want that folklore to die.
I would agree. And I would say kind of the same with Vodnik, partially due to what you were saying that it's the origins of it probably was. Kids still need to be very cognizant and aware of the dangers of water. Also, for both of these, I think it deserves a thumbs up and more news coverage because if you were to ask 10,000 Americans if they had ever heard of either, how many of those, 100,000, if you ask 100,000 Americans, have you heard of Vodnik or Grolica? How many do you think would say they had heard of it?
None.
Exactly. So for that reason alone. I think it's a 2 thumbs up from both of us.
Yes, absolutely. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. We're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about aliens.
Nice.
Buying a home shouldn't feel like wandering in the dark. You deserve a clear path from start to finish.
That's why Stephen lays out every step and brings in Ed Locke to make the loan side just as clear.
I'm Steve Lindsay with Heart of Kentucky Real Estate. My goal is simple. No confusion, no surprises, just a smooth path home.
I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. I'll walk you through the financing step by step so you'll always know what's coming next.
Call me at 502-600-0550. Together we'll make your path to a new home crystal clear. Man, the thing is, we do ads, and I know they're a pain in the butt for people. I get that. But they do pay our bills.
Absolutely.
They help us with our technology, our studio, and I'm really proud of that. So one of the things that when we started talking about Slovakia, we get to do this so little. I didn't want to just focus on their cryptids or their folklore or their stories. Okay. I wanted to talk about things that could potentially matter to everyday citizens. The next one I'm going to talk about was the entire, from the 1990s all the way to the 2000s. That's pretty new, Absolutely. Considering. And I think that that's important. It's called the Trnava UFO wave. And I pray I'm saying that right. It is, I'll spell it, Trnava, Trnava. I'm just making that up. If it's not right, I'm sorry. This is just dumb old Kentucky boy trying to figure it out. So sorry if it's not right. But the Trnava UFO wave from the 1990s to the 2000s, multiple residents reported bright, silent lights hovering over fields with sudden vertical ascents, objects moving in sharp right-angle turns with zero aircraft radar confirmation. Local newspapers that covered these sightings for years, and they remain one of Slovakia's most persistent UFO clusters. What's that sound like? It sounds like a half a dozen people that we've talked to all over the United States that have had the exact same phenomenon over their house, over a field, over the lake where they were fishing. How many times have we heard those exact same stories, Jerry?
I've heard that story numerous times.
And I believe most everyone that has said it. Because no one who has ever said that story to me about, I'll never forget, the group of people, there was 4 of them that were saying their goodbyes after an evening hanging out, and they were all on their front porch, and there was a UFO hovering slowly above their porch. All 4 of them looked up, all 4 of them saw it, all 4 of them were in complete and total awe until it went poof and just shot straight up. And then they realized, none of us picked up our damn cameras to take a picture. And that was the story. It wasn't a bunch of, ooh, they abducted me, or ooh, they did this, or they did. That was just it. Man, those are the ones that get me because there's not enough there to write a book about it. You know what I mean?
They're not trying to get their moment of fame.
Yeah.
Just telling you something they saw.
Yes. And now we have it in Trnava, all the way in Slovakia.
Yep.
Same thing. How about the High Tatras silver disc incident in 1976? What were you, Jerry, like 34 back then?
44. I was 74 then.
Oh, gotcha. I believe that. Hikers near Strabutsky Plaso. I know I butchered that. A metal disc was hovering above the lake. With a sudden flash, the object took straight up without a sound. It's often compared to the Alpine UFO sightings in Austria and Switzerland of the same mountain chain with the same weirdness. So these mountains border all three countries, and people in all three countries have seen the same thing. These craft come down, hover above the lake. A lot of people think that they are drawing up water or they are doing something with the water. Maybe it's the fish out of the water. Whatever it is, they hover above the lake, and as soon as they're done, gone, straight up at breakneck speeds that our eyes can barely follow. That's insane. Humans can't do that.
Not even close.
I got one more that I want to cover before we get to the bonus story and the call to action and stuff. And since, why not, we'll cover this one because it's easy to say too. How's that? And this one, you're going to know, Jerry. You're going to feel this one because you've heard this story as much as I in talking to a million people.
Okay.
The Cossack triangle lights. Witnesses describe three lights forming a perfect triangle, moving as a single craft, silent, low-altitude flights over a city. Slavic UFOologists still debate whether it's a military test or something stranger. How many times
So many.
out of the thousands of people we've interviewed at the festivals that we attend and the interactions that we've had with people, has there been a triangle-shaped craft with 3 to 5 lights on it, hovering silently or floating silently? And, you know, the Slavic ufologist, I appreciate your input, but you're wrong. Because those same craft are all over the world. And if it was a different, this is where I was going with that earlier, that if a Slavic aircraft with 3 lights was hovering over Chicago, our military would blow it out of the sky.
Or at least attempt to.
Exactly. That's how you know that this particular instance, I don't believe it's a military aircraft. I don't believe it's anybody's military aircraft. I believe our militaries see it and know that they can't do a thing about it. Because we've
Well,
tried.
wouldn't they at least try.
Or we have tried. In 1952 or 29, I don't forget, I'll look up the years in a minute. We had unidentified aircraft over the central hub of Washington. It was the attack on Washington. Back, gosh, I want to say it was in the 50s. We unloaded everything we had to protect the Capitol without hitting anything.
I'll be done.
That was a whole thing. Our aircraft, our F-18s, Dr. Faber was in training operations over the Pacific Ocean. They couldn't keep up with these things. The tic-tac, go fast and tic-tac. We have video evidence of that from Navy colonels who were on site, who saw it.
It was 1952, by the way.
Good. Thank you for looking that up. So you know what I'm talking about. We have evidence of these things where we've tried to get on site and try to catch them, and we can't keep up. Our aircraft aren't fast enough. The only reason that they even thought that we were able to get locked onto the go fast was because we were able to lock onto it with one of our newer technologies that allowed them to look at not the actual aircraft, but the wake that the aircraft, and I forget what that's called. I'm not a military guy, I'm sorry. But it wasn't an actual lock on the aircraft, it was a lock on where the aircraft was. Does that make sense? So that's why. That's how I think that we know we can't touch these things if we don't want to. I think they scare us because they've shut off our nuclear reactors and our nuclear silos at peak points during our past. We've had a UFO encounter and our nuclear silos go dark. That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Exactly. So,
Could lead easily to a nuclear meltdown.
yes.
Very easy. Yeah, that's not only a big deal, I can't even begin to imagine how 3 Mile Island, any of those,
Well,
that could happen.
they didn't shoot down a nuclear reactor. They shut down our nuclear silo where we have ICBMs, our nuclear weapons.
Even, that's scary. If you can do that, could you not fire it if they had the...
That's what I'm
potential to do
saying.
that? Yeah.
I think it was an effort to show us petty humans,
capability.
hey, you don't want to mess with us. We're not hurting anything, but we can stop you. Just saying, and we can look all that up. But I think that the Cossack triangle lights in 2001 are a prime example of how Slavic sightings mesh with the sightings that the rest of the world are having. We've interviewed people from all over the world that have had these sightings. I'm just saying. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's scary. It's unbelievably scary. It's also absolutely not isolated to Slovakia.
Absolutely.
These same stories.
You want to do one more?
Sure, let's do it.
One more. Now, again, I'm just picking this one because I just want to try to say it. But we had to do one more, right? The Zeolina Forest Orb. This happened in 2010, so this is pretty new by standards, if you will. A glowing orb was seen weaving in and out of trees about the size of a basketball, emitting a pulsing blue-white light. However, it was moving with an intelligent, controlled motion, often compared to what we call spook lights or ball lightning. But the controlled movement is what made this particular orb stand out. It didn't divert into a tree or divert into the water like sometimes ball lightning will. This was at a level, moving in between trees, the size of a basketball. Couple of things there. I appreciate this particular report out of Slovakia because it goes to show us that scale matters to us more than it does the rest of the universe.
Yep.
Just because you and I think we need a grand starship to go see the stars doesn't mean that another faction or another race hasn't been able to do the same thing in the shape of or the size of a basketball.
Miniaturize all of it.
Yeah, or they're a miniature race. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
There's a scene at the end of, I want to say it was the last Men in Black, the last real Men in Black, with Agent J and K, where he opens the locker and we step out and we are the smallest thing there.
Yep.
I think that opened my eyes really for a fictional movie more than anything that I can remember, because it made me understand that we're not the biggest or the smallest thing in the universe.
Yep.
Even on our very skin, there are whole other universes.
Sure.
And who's to say we're not on one of those universes on the skin of some other huge, gigantic creature?
Absolutely.
You're like, my gosh, would you get out of this rabbit hole? Well, alien interactions with the Slovaks. I also want to give this a thumbs up,
I agree.
because anytime we can get disclosure information, I think it's important. If you listen to our last encounters, please go listen to that with Dr. Terry Adair. He's going to say that that's probably not the case, that it's probably not aliens. We're going to have him back on the show because that was a fantastic interview, and we're going to get him back. But I think on this case, and I understand the argument that space is so vast and so large that it's unlikely, I think that if there is a race out there that is far in advance technologically than we are, then they can overcome those distances. Either be it wormhole or fabrications or whatever the case may be, I think that the imagination would allow that to happen. Just saying. So who's to say that these aren't real? Just saying.
It's hard to argue.
Hard to argue. The hill up to Chakotay Castle feels wrong in a way you can't quite name. The wind doesn't blow across it. It circles it like something pacing the ruins, waiting for company. And when you finally reach the top, when the stones of the old fortress rise out of the grass like broken teeth, you understand why people say this place remembers every scream it ever heard. Chakotay isn't just haunted, it's aware. The courtyard is open to the sky now. The roof collapsed centuries ago, but people still hear footsteps overhead. Slow, dragging, deliberate. I stood there imagining the weight of those steps, wondering who they belonged to. A victim, a guard, maybe a woman whose name has become legend, so tangled in truth and lies that historians can't even separate them anymore. Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess, a Carpathian vampire, or maybe just a woman famed by power and politics. It really depends on who you ask. What's certain is this: girls died here. Dozens, maybe hundreds. And whether she killed them or somebody wanted the world to believe that she did, the castle absorbed every ounce of the fear that passed through its halls. There's a room, or what's left of it, where she supposedly was imprisoned, bricked in, left to die in the dark. When you step inside, the air changes, gets heavy, like the room is full of breath that isn't yours. People say they feel watched. Some hear whispering. One visitor claims she felt fingers brush against the back of her neck, cold and curious. Everyone who enters that room says the same thing when they step out. I wasn't alone. But the part that stays with me, the part that crawls under my skin, is what lies beneath the castle. The tunnels. A whole network of medieval passages that run under the hills in the village below. Some collapsed, some sealed, some still open if you know where to look. Explorers hear knocking down there, footsteps, voices, someone crying. One man said he heard a woman whisper, "Pomozi." I'm assuming that means help me. And then, almost too soft to catch, Nicodee Neomadine. I will never leave. The hills drink the sorrow. The castle exhales the screams. And the tunnels, they keep the secrets. Whether Elizabeth Bathory was a monster or a martyr, her story is carved into these very stones. And the land hasn't forgotten her. Some nights, hikers see a woman in a woman in white walking the ramparts. Some nights they hear chains. Some nights they smell iron, sharp, metallic, and unmistakable. And some nights the castle calls people by name. Chatteris stands alone on a hill, watching the village below. And if you listen closely, really closely, you might even still hear her. Not the legend, not the monster, not the myth. Just a woman in the dark whispering through the storm. I am here.